The Vorellan Empire's outer border was usually quiet. Most days, the patrol ships drifted lazily through the darkness, scanning the same empty sectors, exchanging dull reports, and counting the hours until shift change. But today was different. Commander Vierex stood on the bridge of the patrol cruiser ISV Sentinel, staring at the holographic display. Something had entered the restricted Varan system. Something small, strange, and moving in a way no known ship moved. "Report," Vierex ordered, his long fingers tightening on the console. Lieutenant Jarek's voice trembled. "Object detected at .6 light-years. Metallic hull, odd shape, no transponder code, energy readings, unusual." "How unusual?" "Sir, the core output is unstable, spiking every few seconds. Could be a prototype weapon system." That word, weapon, spread tension through the bridge crew. Everyone knew the Varan system guarded one of the Empire's secret military depots. Any intruder here could be a spy. Or worse, a first strike. Vierex narrowed his reptilian eyes. "Contact Imperial Command. This is a possible Category 2 threat." Far away, aboard a much smaller vessel, Elias Drake sat in his pilot's chair, humming to himself. His ship, the Pathfinder, was a compact exploration craft built for long-range mapping missions. It wasn't armed for war, unless you counted the old emergency flare launcher and a toolbox full of wrenches. Elias had been in space for 6 months, charting star systems for the Earth Exploration Corps. Most of that time was quiet, just him, the ship's AI, and the endless star fields. So when his scanners lit up with a system that no human had ever recorded, he felt a rush of excitement. "All right, Pathfinder," Elias said, grinning. "Let's go see what's in there." The ship's AI, Hazel, replied in her calm voice. "Warning, system appears to have inhabited worlds. No response to standard greeting signals." "Probably just shy," Elias joked. "Let's pay them a friendly visit." Back on the Sentinel, the bridge had gone from tense to outright panicked. The intruder was heading straight for the depot sector. The strange spikes in its energy readings now looked exactly like the pre-firing cycles of an experimental superweapon the Empire had seen in enemy prototypes. "Intercept course plotted," Jarek said. Vierex activated the fleet channel. "All nearby patrols converge on Varan. This is not a drill." Across the border zone, other Vorellan ships turned toward the system, their drives burning bright. Civilian transports in nearby space lanes were ordered to divert. Planetary defense grids went on high alert. The message spreading through the Empire was short and frightening. Unknown warship approaching. Possible invasion. Elias was still happily scanning the system. "Hazel, record star maps, local mineral data, and, oh, that planet's got green patches. Looks like forests. Could be life down there." Hazel's display pinged with an alert. "Incoming vessels detected. Multiple. Formation suggests blockade." "Finally," Elias said, leaning forward. "Locals. Maybe they can tell me where to find a good cup of coffee around here." To the Vorellans, what happened next looked terrifying. Elias activated his ship's spectral scanner, a harmless beam designed to map ship hulls and atmospheric composition. But to Vorellan sensors, the energy pulse matched the signature of a military targeting system. "Sir, the intruder is locking weapons!" Jarek shouted. Vierex didn't hesitate. "All ships, battle formation, send warning shots, widespread. Make it clear we will defend this sector." A moment later, lines of blue plasma bolts lit up the darkness, passing harmlessly in front of the Pathfinder. Inside his cockpit, Elias blinked in shock. "Whoa! Hazel, was that... Did they just shoot at me?" "Trajectory analysis suggests deliberate misses," Hazel replied. "They may be warning you to leave." Elias rubbed his forehead. "Right. So, maybe they're not friendly locals after all." The Vorellans, however, saw his hesitation as something else. A predator studying its prey. "Notice the way it holds position," one officer whispered. "It's not afraid. It's evaluating us. Rumors were already spreading through the Imperial fleet channels. Some claimed the ship was a stealth scout for a human mercenary empire. Others swore they'd seen this design in ancient war records from the precursor wars. No one knew for sure, but everyone agreed on one thing. This was no ordinary encounter. Elias decided he should probably explain himself. He tapped into the comms, sending out a friendly, pre-recorded greeting in 20 alien languages provided by Earth's xenolinguists. The message was simple. "Hello, my name is Elias Drake. I am an explorer from Earth. I come in peace. I would like to learn about your worlds." Unfortunately, the Vorellan translators had trouble. The word Earth came through as origin world, a term used in some war propaganda to describe the mythical birthplace of an ancient conqueror race. The phrase, "I would like to learn about your worlds," became, "I will study your worlds," which, in a military context, sounded exactly like reconnaissance before invasion. When Virex heard the translation, he gave a grim order. "Prepare the fleet. If it enters attack range, we strike first." Elias saw the blockade tighten. His scanners showed no one responding to his messages. "This is weird," he muttered. "Why would they—" Oh no. Hazel, do you think they think I'm dangerous?" Probability of misunderstanding. 84%, Hazel replied. Elias groaned. "Great. Just great. First new species I meet in months, and they already want to shoot me." The standoff lasted hours. The Vorellans continued shadowing the Pathfinder, their every move cautious but ready to attack. Elias, not wanting to escalate, decided to slowly back his ship toward a nearby asteroid belt to avoid direct confrontation. But to Vorellan eyes, his slow drift looked like a combat repositioning maneuver, moving toward cover before an assault. "High Command will want to see this," Jarek said. "This is classic strike prep behavior. Within minutes, a priority." Signal flashed across the Vorellan military network. Category 1 threat confirmed. "Mobilize battle groups 7, 8, and 9. By the time Elias realized just how many ships were now surrounding him, it was too late. His nav map was lit with dozens of red blips closing in from all directions. "Hazel," he said quietly, "I think I just started an interstellar incident." And somewhere deep in the imperial capital, the High Chancellor of the Vorellan Empire received the news. Her eyes narrowed as she studied the grainy image of the strange, angular ship. "This is no merchant craft," she declared. "It is a scout. And if there is a scout, the fleet will follow." Her voice carried across the War Council chamber. "Send word to our allies. We may be facing a galactic war." All because, far out in the void, a lone human explorer decided to say hello. The Vorellan Empire was vast. From the frozen worlds of the Outer Rim to the golden spires of the core, its military fleets guarded every border. For hundreds of years, no enemy had dared to attack them directly. Now, however, the news spreading through the Empire made it seem as if that peace was about to end. The panic begins. The broadcast started small, a military alert sent to nearby sectors. But within hours, civilian news channels picked it up. Soon, every hollow screen on every world displayed the same urgent headline: "Unknown warship approaching Imperial space. Possible invasion force." Images of the Pathfinder, blurry and magnified, appeared on screen. To the average Vorellan, the human ship looked alien and aggressive, its angular design and dark hull panels unlike any known trading or diplomatic vessel. Military analysts filled the airwaves, pointing to the strange energy readings and the fact that the intruder had not left despite warnings. "They are testing our resolve," one retired admiral claimed. "If we show weakness, this will be the first wave of a full invasion." Orders from the top in the Imperial War Council chamber, High Chancellor Verak paced before a grand display of fleet movements. Dozens of red arrows marked the blockade around the intruder. "What is the civilian evacuation status?" she asked. 70% complete in the Varan sector, replied a defense minister. Traffic is heavy but under control. Civilian ships have been rerouted to safe systems. And our reinforcements? 3 battle groups are in position. 2 more will arrive within the day. Varric's eyes narrowed. Good. Keep them on high alert. If this ship attacks, I want it destroyed before it can send a signal to its allies. The council nodded grimly. No one questioned the idea that this mysterious vessel belonged to something larger, a fleet hidden just beyond the edge of their sensors. Elias still clueless. Meanwhile, Elias Drake sat in the Pathfinder's lounge area, sipping lukewarm coffee from a metal mug and staring at the sensor display. Hazel, he muttered. There are now, 40 ships out there? 42, the AI corrected. 4 of them are heavy-class warships. All are maintaining blockade formation. Elias rubbed his face. I'm starting to think they didn't like my hello message. Probability suggests they misinterpreted your communication, Hazel replied. Elias leaned back in his chair. Yeah, no kidding. Problem is, how do you explain I'm just a tourist to people who think you're a warlord? He considered, turning around and leaving. But then his explorer's pride kicked in. He had spent months reaching this sector. He wasn't going to run at the first sign of trouble, especially if it was all just a big misunderstanding. The wrong signals trying. To ease tensions, Elias decided to show them he wasn't a threat. He powered down his ship's main drive to minimal output, hoping this would signal peaceful intent. But to the Vorellans, the sudden drop in power looked like stealth mode activation, a tactic used by assassins to avoid detection before striking. Commander, Virex, still aboard the ISV Sentinel, sent the report to High Command. Enemy vessel has entered low-emission mode. Possible stealth infiltration attempt. This only made the panic worse. The media frenzy across the Empire, citizens prepared for the worst. On the city world of Reloth Prime, people lined up at emergency supply depots, stocking up on food and water. On frontier colonies, militias dusted off old weapons and began night patrols. Every news outlet replayed the same dramatic footage, the Pathfinder drifting in the void, surrounded by Imperial warships. Some broadcasts featured wild theories. The intruder is an ancient machine race awakened from hibernation. It's a weapon disguised as a ship, sent to test our defenses. It's the vanguard of the human dominion, a ruthless empire from beyond the Orion Arm. The word human was whispered with fear in markets, schools, and government offices. First confrontation attempt at last, the Vorellans decided to force a response. A squadron of 3 cruisers advanced toward Elias's ship, broadcasting a message in their own language. Hazel translated the words for Elias. Unknown vessel, power down all systems and prepare for boarding. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. Elias nearly spit out his coffee. Boarding? Oh no, no way. I'm not letting a bunch of strangers walk in and poke around my ship. So instead of complying, he turned his ship slowly and began moving away. To him, it was a polite retreat, a way to avoid escalating things. To them, it looked like a tactical withdrawal to regroup and strike later. The High Chancellor decides, when word reached Varric that the intruder had refused to submit to boarding, her decision was swift. Raise alert to level Crimson. Inform our allies that we are dealing with an unknown but advanced threat. If diplomacy fails, we will engage. An encrypted message was sent to 2 neighboring empires. Within hours, their fleets also began moving toward Vorellan space. The misunderstanding was no longer local. It was turning into a galactic event. Elias gets worried. For the first time since arriving, Elias felt a knot of fear in his stomach. Hazel's sensors now detected even more ships, not just Vorellan but of different designs. They've called friends, Elias muttered. That's not good. Agreed, Hazel said. Probability of large-scale conflict is rising. Elias leaned forward, tapping the comms. All right, I need to make this crystal clear. He recorded a new message, even simpler than before. I am Elias Drake. I am a peaceful explorer. I am alone. I do not wish to fight. He sent it in every frequency he could. The problem? The Varellans intercepted only part of it. Their translators garbled the phrase, I am alone into, I am the first. To them, this confirmed their worst fear. The intruder was only the first wave of an approaching fleet, a galaxy on edge by nightfall. On Varellan Prime, the streets were filled with tension. The holoscreens showed constant fleet updates. School children were taught basic shelter drills. Factories began shifting production to military supplies. The Empire's propaganda arm started releasing statements about defending freedom and standing strong against the invader. Public opinion hardened. This ship had to be stopped. Tene. Calm before the storm, Elias floated in the asteroid belt, the Pathfinder gently rotating. His eyes were fixed on the stars beyond his viewport. They're scared of me, he said quietly. But they don't even know what I am. Hazel remained silent. For a long moment, Elias considered activating his emergency jump drive and leaving the system entirely. But something inside him refused. He had come here to explore, not run. All right, he finally said. If they won't talk to me, I'll just have to make them listen. What Elias didn't know was that far beyond his sensors, 3 massive fleets were now on a collision course with his position. The smallest mistake, the tiniest misunderstanding, could start a war that would burn across half the galaxy. The first shot wasn't meant to hit. At least, that was what Commander Virex told himself. The plasma bolts were aimed wide, more as a warning than an attack. But warnings, like messages, can be misunderstood. Elias runs on. The Pathfinder. The sudden burst of blue plasma flashing past his cockpit window made Elias's heart jump into his throat. "Hazel!" he shouted. "That looked a lot like someone just tried to fry me." Analysis. They intentionally missed, Hazel said calmly. However, continued fire is likely if you remain in position. Elias didn't wait for a second volley. He shoved the throttle forward, activating the ship's twin fusion drives. The Pathfinder leapt forward, its engines blazing. From the Varellan's point of view, the sudden burst of speed wasn't retreat. It was the kind of high-energy acceleration used by trained combat pilots to evade enemy fire. "Target is breaking through the blockade," Jarek cried from the Sentinel's sensor station. Virex bared his teeth. "All ships, pursue! Do not let it escape!" The chase begins. The quiet Varan sector exploded into motion. Varellan cruisers and destroyers surged after the small black vessel, their drives lighting up the void. Civilian transports in the area scattered, some jumping to hyperspace at maximum speed. Elias glanced at the swarm of red blips chasing him on his nav map. "Hazel, that's a lot of angry ships back there." 46 confirmed pursuers, Hazel replied. 2 heavy cruisers are closing from the left flank. Intercept in 90 seconds. Elias muttered something under his breath and pulled the ship into a sharp climb over the plane of the system, skimming the edge of an asteroid belt. Every move misread to Elias. The maneuver was simple. Use the asteroids as cover to break line of sight, then slip away quietly. To the Varellans, it looked like a textbook ambush setup. The intruder was luring them into a dense asteroid field where their larger ships would have trouble maneuvering. Virex sent a fleet-wide warning. "Enemy is attempting to draw us into trapped terrain. Maintain distance and use long-range weapons." The asteroid field lit up with plasma fire, huge chunks of rock breaking apart and tumbling into space. Elias cursed. "Great! Now they're blasting my cover!" More fleets. Join in by now. The High Chancellor's call for help had reached neighboring, allied empires. In the Loran Union, a battle group of sleek silver frigates received orders to assist. In the Zathari Dominion, a squadron of needle-shaped warships also plotted jump coordinates to the Varan sector. What had started as one empire's overreaction was now spreading like wildfire, and still, no one had even spoken to Elias face-to-face. Chew, phantom reputation. The Pathfinder's engines were powerful for its size. Built for long-range exploration, they could maintain high speeds for days without burning out. The Varellan ships could match his bursts for short periods, but they couldn't keep up forever. So Elias's constant changes of direction, combined with his tendency to disappear into asteroid fields or skim the upper atmosphere of gas giants, made him seem almost supernatural to his pursuers. Rumors began spreading across fleet comms. The human ship can vanish from sensors at will. It's using some kind of cloaking tech we've never seen. It anticipates our moves, like it's reading our minds. Within hours, soldiers were calling it the Phantom Human Warship. Elias tries. Again, hoping to break the cycle, Elias attempted another broadcast. This time, he sent a live visual feed of himself, a smiling man in a worn flight suit holding a mug of coffee. "Hello," he said brightly. "I'm Elias Drake. I'm not here to fight anyone. Can we talk?" Unfortunately, the Vorellan translation AI struggled with his casual tone and slang. His opening, "hello," became, "I greet you as one who comes to claim victory." The image of him holding a mug was interpreted by some as a ritualistic gesture, possibly a war challenge. Virex, watching the feed, was convinced the intruder was mocking them. "He's taunting us," the commander growled. The relentless pursuit hours turned into a full day. Elias led the Vorellans on a chase across 2 star systems. He ducked through plasma storms, weaved around comet trails, and even passed near a pulsar, all while trying to shake the growing armada behind him. Every time he slipped out of their targeting range, the fleet would split up to try and cut him off. Every time, Elias would find a narrow gap and squeeze through before they could close it. On Vorellan news channels, commentators compared the pursuit to legendary space battles of the past. Except in those battles, the outnumbered ship was usually a deadly war machine. A moment of rest by the second night, Elias finally managed to hide behind the massive rings of a gas giant. The swirling bands of ice and rock masked his heat signature, giving him a moment to breathe. He floated there in the quiet, watching the glowing storms on the planet's surface. "Hazel," he said softly, "this is getting out of hand." Agreed. The level of misunderstanding is severe. Suggest seeking direct contact with a single, smaller vessel for clarification. Elias nodded slowly. "Yeah. I just need someone who's willing to actually listen." The linguist's curiosity. Back aboard the Sentinel, one crew member was thinking the same thing, but for different reasons. Lieutenant Kareth, a young Vorellan xenolinguist, had been monitoring the intruder's transmissions closely. While most officers dismissed them as coded threats, Kareth noticed something strange. The tone didn't match military speech. "This doesn't sound like a warlord," Kareth murmured, replaying the clip of Elias smiling awkwardly into the camera. "There's humor, casualness, even self-talk. No one about to start a war speaks like this." When Kareth shared his theory, the senior officers scoffed, but the idea stuck in his mind. Elias moves. Again. Rest time was over. The Vorellans had begun sweeping the gas giant's rings with drones. Elias powered up, slipping away before they could corner him again. This time, he decided to head toward open space, hoping to find a quiet place to finally get through to someone. But his movement toward the edge of the sector triggered another wave of panic. Virex believed he was heading toward the rest of his hidden fleet. "Full pursuit," Virex ordered. "We cannot allow him to escape." A race to the edge. The chase grew more intense as the Pathfinder threaded between gravitational wells and slingshotted past small moons. The Varellans pushed their ships to the limit, some overheating engines in the process. Even as Elias tried to run without hurting anyone, his unpredictable maneuvers only added to his legend. Crews whispered that the Phantom could dodge plasma fire at point-blank range, that it could navigate through debris at speeds no sane pilot would attempt. They weren't wrong about that last one. Elias was a little insane when it came to flying. By the end of the third day, the situation was a powder keg. One wrong move, one misread signal, and the galaxy's first meeting with humanity would start not with a handshake, but with a war. The third day of the chase began with tension so thick it felt like the air itself could ignite. Varellan fleets had grown to more than 60 ships, joined by squadrons from 2 allied empires. The strange, black, fast-moving vessel was still out there, evading them at every turn. No one had landed a single shot. No one had spoken to the pilot. And yet, every admiral in the fleet was certain they were hunting the most dangerous scout the galaxy had seen in centuries. Kareth's Doubt Lieutenant Kareth sat at his console aboard the ISV Sentinel, eyes fixed on the latest intercepted transmission from the human ship. It was short, visual only, a man with messy brown hair, rubbing his face and muttering something to himself. The official translation came back as, "Prepare for the next phase of my mission." But Kareth didn't believe it. He replayed the clip, listening carefully to the tone, the pacing, even the rhythm of the syllables. "That's not a war statement," Kareth whispered. "That's tired, frustrated, not threatening." The more he listened, the more the pieces didn't fit. The ship's movements weren't aggressive, they were evasive. The pilot's broadcasts weren't demands. They were attempts at conversation. Kareth knew he was going to sound insane, but he decided to speak up anyway. A risky proposal. During the fleet's daily command briefing, Kareth requested, "To address Commander Virex. Sir, with respect, I believe the intruder is not hostile." The room went still. Virex's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Kareth took a deep breath. "I've analyzed every transmission. The linguistic patterns are informal, unstructured. They don't match any known military code. The pilot shows signs of curiosity, even friendliness." A senior weapons officer scoffed. "He's playing a psychological game, making us underestimate him." "Then why hasn't he fired?" Kareth pressed. "He's had dozens of chances to destroy smaller patrol craft. Instead, he runs." Virex didn't respond immediately. His gaze was sharp, but there was a flicker of consideration. Finally, he said, "You want to make contact, don't you?" "Yes, sir. Direct contact. No weapons, no threats. Just a conversation." The room erupted in protests, but Virex silenced them with a wave. "Fine, Lieutenant. You have one shuttle, one escort drone, and my permission for one attempt. Fail, and you'll be reassigned to translation duty on a mining station." Kareth bowed his head slightly. "Understood, Commander." Approaching the Phantom Kareth's shuttle was small, barely large enough for 2 seats and a comms station. Its shields were strong, but they wouldn't last long against real weapons. He set a course to intercept the Pathfinder, broadcasting on an open, low-power channel. "Unknown vessel. This is Lieutenant Kareth of the Varellan Empire. I request peaceful communication." Inside the Pathfinder, Elias blinked at the sudden clear message. "Hazel, did someone just ask to talk?" Affirmative. The AI confirmed. "Language pattern matches previous intercepts, but tone is non-hostile." Elias couldn't help but grin. Finally, someone with manners. The meeting. The 2 ships drifted closer until Kareth's shuttle came into visual range. Its weapons ports were closed, shields active but not aggressive. Elias slowed the Pathfinder, letting the shuttle approach. Kareth's voice came through again, halting but clear. "Are you the first of many?" Elias chuckled. "No, friend. I'm the first of none. Just me. My name's Elias Drake. I'm an explorer from Earth. Kareth tilted his head. Earth? We do not know this world. That's because we've never been here before, Elias said warmly. And I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. The coffee and cookies Kareth hesitated, then made a bold choice. Request permission to board for direct conversation. Elias looked at Hazel. What do you think? Risk level, moderate. However, opportunity for clearing the misunderstanding. High. All right, Elias said. Permission granted. Minutes later, Kareth stepped through the Pathfinder's airlock, his scaled skin glinting in the ship's soft lighting. Elias met him with an outstretched hand and a friendly smile. You drink coffee? Elias asked, holding up a steaming mug. Kareth blinked. I am not familiar. Well, today's your lucky day, Elias said, pouring some into a spare cup. He also opened a packet of chocolate chip cookies and pushed them across the table. Kareth sniffed the drink, tasted it cautiously, and blinked again. This is pleasant, sweet, warm. Elias laughed. Told you. The truth comes out. Over the next hour, the two sat at the small galley table while Hazel translated. Elias explained that he was alone, mapping uncharted systems for the Earth Exploration Corps. He had no weapons beyond basic self-defense tools. Kareth listened carefully, asking questions about Earth, human technology, and why Elias had entered the Varan system. When Elias learned that the system was a restricted military zone, he winced. Okay. I see the problem now. Kareth's tail flicked in thought. And your scans? Our sensors read them as weapon locks. Just my mapping beam, Elias said. Harmless. I didn't even think it could be misread like that. The end of the conversation, Kareth was convinced. This wasn't a warlord. This wasn't even a soldier. It was just a human, curious and stubborn enough to fly into the middle of the most heavily defended sector in Vorellan space without realizing it. Convincing the fleet Kareth knew the hard part was still ahead. Explaining this to Commander Virex, and, through him, to the entire fleet, was going to be a battle of its own. He returned to his shuttle, sending a coded priority message. Intruder not hostile. Repeat, not hostile. Pilot is a lone human explorer. Recommend immediate ceasefire and de-escalation. The response from Virex was sharp. Lieutenant, if this is some kind of joke, it's not a joke, sir, Kareth interrupted. Come, see for yourself. Fleet Command's reaction. When Kareth brought Virex aboard the Pathfinder, the commander's suspicion was written all over his face. He scanned the small interior. No weapons racks, no soldiers, just a cluttered mess of star charts, toolkits, and snack wrappers. Elias greeted him with the same easy smile. Coffee? Virex stared for a long moment before accepting the mug. One sip later, the hard lines of his expression softened, only slightly but enough. Kareth explained everything again in detail. Virex asked pointed questions, and Elias answered them all with calm honesty. Finally, Virex stepped back. If what you say is true, then the Empire has just mobilized half its navy to chase one man who wanted to take pictures of the stars. Sounds about right, Elias said with a shrug. Standing down, within the hour, orders went out to the fleet. Cease pursuit. Stand down from Crimson Alert. Intruder is not a threat. The sudden shift sent confusion rippling through the ranks. Soldiers who had spent days convinced they were chasing a deadly scout were now told it was a peaceful explorer. In the imperial capital, the High Chancellor received the news with a face that could have cracked stone. The political fallout was going to be complicated. A strange new reputation, even as the fleets pulled back, word of the incident spread across the galaxy. The story was told and retold, each version more dramatic than the last. To some, the human was a master tactician who had evaded the Empire's best ships for days. To others, he was a reckless wanderer with no sense of boundaries. Either way, the name Elias Drake was now known far beyond the borders of Vorellan space. Elias, for his part, just leaned back in his pilot's chair, sipping coffee as the stars drifted by. "Well, Hazel," he said, "that was one heck of a welcome party." Hazel's soft voice replied, "And it is not over yet." She was right. The real challenge was still to come, because now that the truth was out, the galaxy had to decide what to do with its first human visitor. The meeting between Elias Drake and the Vorellan Empire had ended with no shots fired, no war declared, and no fleets destroyed. It was a miracle. But now came the harder part, explaining what had really happened. The news spreads the moment. Kareth's team sent their report back to the Imperial capital. The story spread like wildfire. It was the same across the Empire's hundreds of worlds. Massive holoscreens showed the face of the so-called unknown invader. It wasn't a ruthless warlord. It wasn't a mysterious AI ship. It wasn't a deadly bounty hunter. It was just Elias, a human explorer with a slightly crooked smile, messy hair, and a cup of coffee in his hand. Some civilians laughed in relief. Others were furious. "You mean," one talk show host yelled, "we evacuated 3 planets for this man?" Military officials avoided answering that question. Instead, they released carefully worded statements. "The Empire acted with necessary caution. Our rapid response ensured that no threat could harm our citizens." Privately, many officers were red-faced with embarrassment. Some of them had written entire invasion defense plans for one man and his exploration ship. Elias, the honored guest. Elias was invited to the Imperial capital under the title Special Diplomatic Visitor. The official invitation was covered in gold ink and holographic seals. It was clear the Empire wanted to save face by treating him as an important envoy, even if he wasn't. Elias didn't really care about politics. He just thought it would be nice to see the capital. When he arrived, the welcome ceremony was over the top. Marching soldiers, banners in the wind, alien musicians playing in 3 different keys at once. Elias stood there smiling and waving, while Kareth whispered, "Just keep smiling. They're trying to turn this into a peace celebration." The Emperor herself, a tall, elegant Vorellan with silver eyes, stepped forward to greet him. "You have traveled far, human Elias Drake," she said in a voice meant to carry across the plaza. "May your journeys bring understanding, not fear." Elias nodded. Thanks. I promise I won't scare anyone next time." The translators hesitated, unsure whether to edit his words. They decided to just leave them as they were. Behind closed doors, while the public saw parades and ceremonies, behind closed doors, the Imperial Council was having a much more serious meeting. High Admiral Vorek slammed a datapad onto the table. "This is unacceptable. We mobilized half our fleet over misinterpretations. If this had been a real war, our intelligence failure would have cost us everything." One minister replied, "And yet, the galaxy now thinks humans are capable of outrunning and outmaneuvering our best ships without even trying." The council fell silent. It was true. The story of Elias's evasion, which was really just him trying to get away from what he thought was aggressive locals, had spread far beyond the Empire's borders. In the Rim systems, smugglers were already telling tales of the human ghost ship. Rival empires were suddenly updating their military files on the human threat. Elias's perspective, Elias didn't see himself as dangerous at all. One evening, in the Imperial Guest Palace, he sat on a balcony drinking tea with Kareth. "You know," he said, "back home, if I saw a big alien fleet chasing me, I'd assume I'd done something wrong. But you guys, you assumed I was there to conquer you." Kareth's mandibles clicked in amusement. Our empire has fought many wars, a lone ship with unknown technology. It was easier to believe you were a scout for a larger force than to believe you were sightseeing. Elias chuckled. Well, I'm glad we cleared it up. Still, feels strange that half the galaxy thinks I'm some kind of space hero. Kareth tilted their head. Not a hero. A wild card. The galaxy respects and fears wild cards. A reputation is born. The human's reputation began to take on a life of its own. Some rumors claimed Elias's ship could turn invisible. Others said it carried weapons capable of destroying a moon. One particularly creative tale claimed Elias had single-handedly disabled an entire fleet, then spared them out of human mercy. Elias tried correcting people when he heard such stories. Nobody listened. By the time his stay at the capital ended, the words human, handle with care had quietly appeared on multiple interstellar watch lists. It was half warning, half compliment. Farewell to the Empire. When it was time for Elias to leave, the Emperor herself came to see him off. You are welcome in our space, human Elias Drake, she said. But perhaps next time you should announce yourself before entering. Elias grinned. I'll keep that in mind. And if you ever visit Earth, I'll give you the full tourist tour. The Emperor smiled politely, though it was clear she had no immediate plans to travel to a planet full of unpredictable humans. Kareth walked with Elias to the Pathfinder. You changed things, Kareth said quietly. The Empire will be more cautious about jumping to conclusions now. At least, I hope so. Elias patted their shoulder. And maybe next time I meet an alien, they won't open fire, Kareth gave a dry laugh. Don't count on it. Back to the stars, as the Pathfinder lifted off, Elias felt a wave of relief. He had survived his first real encounter with an alien government, without getting arrested, shot, or accidentally starting a war. Not bad for a week's work. He plotted a course for the next unexplored sector. There were more worlds to map, more strange skies to see, and, hopefully, fewer panicked empires to deal with. Behind him, the Vorellan Empire returned to its normal rhythm. Mostly. Some officers still winced when they saw budget reports, showing how much the human crisis had cost. Others quietly updated contingency plans for unexpected human encounters. And in taverns, marketplaces, and spaceports, the story of the mysterious human explorer grew and grew. The galaxy might forget the exact details, but they would remember one thing clearly. Humans were not to be underestimated. Closing scene far away, in another corner of space, a small merchant ship picked up a radio transmission. This is Elias, Drake of the Pathfinder, just passing through. Don't panic! The merchant captain blinked, then quickly ordered, All ships! Give him space! Trust me, you don't want to make him mad. Elias, hearing silence on the comms, sipped his coffee and smiled. The galaxy wasn't ready for humanity, and humanity wasn't even trying.